What's good? What's good? Happy Friday evening to everybody. You are tapped into the Cops and Convicts podcast with Sean Shepard. I am Sean Shepard, and I'm feeling talkative tonight. Feeling very talkative tonight. We are streaming live on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, and the Cops and Convicts YouTube channel. And I am happy to be here. I hope you guys had a good week. I hope you guys had a great week. I had an interesting week, and my week was capped off about 2 hours ago, in not the best way. I had this bright idea to clip my dog's nails for the first time, and it didn't go well. First little clip was good. The second little clip, my dog was bleeding and yelping, and I felt terrible. I felt real bad. She got lots of treats, lots of belly rubs after that. So my bad. Thank you for tapping in. So I was thinking about a conversation that I had with a chief, a fairly prominent chief of police here in Los Angeles County. He was not just the chief at one agency, he was the chief at a couple of different agencies. And we had a conversation one day about his top 5 reforms that he would like to see implemented across the country when it comes to local law enforcement agencies. I wanted to share them with you. Now, even though I agree with them, I had to take some time to wrap my brain around them because I'm not a member of law enforcement. Obviously, I never have been, never will be. But it was interesting listening to his mind think, and really good guy. It was interesting listening to his mind process what he feels could really change the profession for better. The first thing I wanted to say to you is, now he has 5 reform issues, but I also want to share something with you that he shared with me that's not part of his top 5 reform issues. What this chief shared with me is that over 95% of members of law enforcement who retire claim disability. And he said it's the biggest hustle in the profession because throughout the course of your law enforcement career, who's to say you didn't get hurt performing your duties? Even though you fell down the steps at home and it had nothing to do with your job, members of law enforcement will claim the injuries sustained from that fall down the steps at home as something that they sustained on the job. And he said it's pervasive in the profession. It's not going anywhere because there's nothing that anyone can do to prove that what they're saying isn't true. But I found it interesting that he let me know that so many members of law enforcement, when they retire, claim disability, and their disability, more often than not, has nothing to do with what happened on the job. It's not to say that they don't sustain injuries on the job, because they most certainly do. I'm just giving you that for food for thought. Just putting it out there. The chief said it, not me. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay, so let's get to this chief's first bullet point of reform. The first thing he says is that we need to re-identify the core function of law enforcement in the United States. We can't continue to respond to every single need or concern: homelessness, mental illness, opioid overdoses, etc. Supplement staffing within public safety organizations, both police and fire. They need to take a shared responsibility approach by developing specialists and hiring specialists so that police officers can be removed from the equation. Too many bad outcomes result from calls for service they should never be handling in the first place. I did a video on a former Georgetown University alum who lost her life at the hands of a member of law enforcement during a routine wellness check. What this police chief is saying, what this former police chief is saying, is that there's too much on law enforcement's plate. They're called to too many calls for service that he feels they shouldn't be called to. Opioid overdoses, mental illness calls, homelessness. This former chief feels like police should not respond to those calls at all, and that there should be a specialist inside of each department that deal with these specific types of calls for service. I want to read the last sentence that he said. Too many bad outcomes result from calls for service that police should never be handling in the first place. And at the top of that list, in my opinion, is mental health calls. Unless this person who is experiencing a mental health episode is endangering the public around him or her, and even in those circumstances, if a member of law enforcement is called to maintain public safety, because that's one of their top two responsibilities in the profession, a mental health specialist should be accompanying that member of law enforcement on that particular call. So that's number one. That's his number one. Well, that I shouldn't say that's his number one in a list of hierarchy things to address. That's just the first one. Let me get to the second one. All right. So his second point of reform is to create a survey for all law enforcement agencies and employees to measure the cultural values and priorities of the organization. This type of information will tell you the health of an organization and become a form of an early warning system. The survey would be constructed by the Department of Justice to dig deep into every law enforcement agency. I feel like the only way that a survey like this could work is if it was anonymous, and I'm assuming that that's what he meant. It allows a law enforcement agency, provided that everyone who's filling out the survey is telling the truth, allow that agency to get a real-time snapshot of how sworn and non-sworn members of that particular agency feel about the cultural values and priorities of the organization. If people are honest taking those surveys, you'll be able to tell what type of people that you have within your organization, why they're members of your organization, why they wanted to become a cop, what are their primary goals of becoming a member of law enforcement. You'd be able to weed out a lot of people. Again, it's provided that these people are telling the truth when they're filling out their survey. His third reform wish is a liaison. Every city with a municipal law enforcement agency should have a law enforcement liaison who works directly for the mayor and the city council members to provide guidance, mentoring, and training to help them understand the true role and function of their law enforcement agency. This will help with policy changes, budgeting, crisis management, and several other issues that arise. The liaison position will be a certified position with training and certification administered at the federal level. Are you sensing a theme? Are you sensing a theme? This particular police chief wants more federal intervention when it comes to local law enforcement agencies so that it's standardized across the country. And he feels like this liaison would be able to educate provide mentoring, provide guidance and training to help elected officials and their staffs understand the true role and function of law enforcement. Not what they think law enforcement is, not what they think their role should be, what it actually is, and that it's coming from a member of law enforcement who's been certified and provides them with this type of information and guidance. I find it very interesting that he thinks that that's important enough in his mind to be on a reform wish list. What do you think about that? The fourth one, and I've been calling for this for a long time, but he adds something to it. The fourth wish: mandatory post-employment psychological evaluations of police officers who work in the field out amongst the public. This should be done every 2 years, with each officer having to meet established standards, once again, set at the federal level. Officers who do not meet these standards would not be able to work in the field. They would remain with the department and receive the professional help that they need. It could then be determined whether they can be rehabilitated, if you will, and sent back into the field, or they may not be able to be rehabilitated. The unions would have a problem with this if it meant that officers would be losing their jobs, because the union's only reason for existing is to keep officers employed. And I've gone over this. They want to keep officers employed so that those officers can continue to pay union dues. Those dues allow those unions to do quite a bit, including support political candidates that they like. Let me continue. The stressors of the job impact people differently, and the wellness of the officer is of paramount. I'm sorry, let me read that again. The stressors of the job impact people differently, and the wellness of the officer is paramount to performing well. This is overlooked because of the stigma attached to this type of evaluation. If you mandate it, it removes the stigma, and the follow-up care and treatment is essential. So what this former chief is saying is that we need to bring psychological testing into the culture of law enforcement so that there's no stigma attached to it, so that it becomes part of popular culture within the profession. He has seen a lot and knows that there are way too many members of law enforcement out in the field interacting with people like you and I, and they are not well psychologically. He knows it. He's been a chief of at least 2 major law enforcement agencies in Los Angeles County. He also says that officers should have fitness standards and should be implemented just like the military. Just as if you are not mentally fit for the job, physical fitness standards for field personnel can reduce injuries to the officer and the public that they encounter. So just to be clear, right now, as it stands, from what he described to me in the state of California, if you're a member of law enforcement, you do not have to pass a psychological evaluation or a fitness evaluation once you become a member of law enforcement. The only time you have to take, at least from what I know, the long-form psychiatric evaluation once you've entered the profession is if you change agencies and go and work for another agency. If you stay with the agency that you originally entered into, and you stay with that agency for 15 years, no matter what you've experienced during your career, you do not have to take the long-form psychiatric evaluation again. And this former chief is saying that is highly problematic within the profession. So I want to recap. This former chief wants to bring standardized psychological testing on a consistent basis for members of law enforcement, and he also wants fitness evaluations for members of law enforcement on an annual or biannual basis. What do you think of that? What do you think of that idea? I like it. I think that what's in the profession, they refer to certain skills as perishable skills. Your psychiatric and psychological health is perishable. It means that it can erode. Your physical fitness is perishable. It means it can erode. Cops need to be tested for both. The last of his 5 reforms that he wants to see implemented has to do with, you guessed it, officer-involved shootings. He says independent investigations of all officer-involved shootings, use of force that results in death or serious injury, and in custody deaths. The involved agency should no longer be the lead agency investigating these types of incidences. I'm sorry. The involved agency should no longer be the lead agency to investigate these types of incidents. A non-involved agency, State Department of Justice, should conduct or at a minimum guide these types of investigations. Why do you think that he thinks that that should be the case? Why do you think this former police chief thinks that all officer-involved shootings, use of force that results in the death or serious injury, and in custody deaths should be handled by the State Department of Justice and not that particular agency? Why do you think that he thinks that? Why do you think he believes that should be the case? He's seen a lot. He's seen too much. And he's seen too much that was below board. I'm not going to speculate on what he's seen, but he knows, in the light of fairness, transparency, and maintaining trust between that agency and their communities that they serve, handing those investigations to a third party, non-biased, neutral agency like the State Department of Justice is the best route to go in order to maintain trust between the law enforcement agency and the communities that they serve. I'm all for that. And I'm going to do a Cops and Convicts podcast based on the 12 recommendations that I gave to Donald J. Trump's law enforcement committee that he formed when he was president during his first term. That's right. I was asked to testify in front of this committee. I did it by phone, and it was during COVID. I have the call. It was all recorded. So I could go and get that recording and share it with you, but instead I'm just going to read all of those recommendations that I gave to his committee, which ultimately was disbanded because it was revealed to be a farce. I'm just telling you the truth. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about how you feel about that last recommendation, that last item on this former chief's wish list. Do you think it's a good idea to give all investigations of officer-involved shootings to a neutral party, to the State Department of Justice. Take it out of the hands of the agency that's involved. What do you think of that? What are your thoughts on that? I'd like to know. I see one viewer in here. Who is that? Where are you tapping in from? Are you tapping in from YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn? Where are you tapping in from? I'm curious. Facebook. Facebook. Let me see if there's a way we can communicate. Let me see if I can communicate with you. I can't. I can't. Let me go to Facebook and see if I can interact with you there. Let me see. All right. I'm live on Facebook. Who is watching? Johnny Edie was watching. My guy. Hey, Johnny, if you're still watching, post a comment. I can interact with you. That's interesting. That's my first time figuring out where someone is tapping in from. This whole live streaming thing is hit or miss. Sometimes a bunch of people show up. I had like 1,200 people in here a couple of Saturdays ago, and I don't know why. I don't know why they tapped in, but they tapped in. Let me see if I can see if you're commenting. Do not see. I don't see. All right. Well, if you don't have any comments, if there's nobody who wants to come in and have a conversation about these top 5 things, I get it. It's Friday night. You guys might have places to go, things to do. I choose not to. I don't have anything that I want to do tonight but talk to you guys. So I may go live on TikTok unless there's a rush of people who decide they want to get on this live stream and talk about any of the 5 things that I said about this former chief and his 5 top wish items for reform inside of the law enforcement profession. So let me see. I am live. Let me see if I click on this, what happens. Let me turn this on. Okay. I see how to do this. So I can have each one of these screens open and comment with people. Where's the live chat? Okay. Let me see if I could go to LinkedIn and do the same. Let me see if I can. Okay, I'm live. Am I live on LinkedIn? I think I am. Let me turn this music off. Somebody's messaging me. Okay, so that's StreamYard. Comments. Somebody is watching me on Facebook. If you're on the Facebook stream, do me a favor and comment in the Facebook live chat so I'll know who it is that's tapped in. Do me that favor. I'm trying to figure all this out. Let me turn this off. Let me turn this music off. Let me go to the cops and convicts. Let me go to the YouTube channel. Okay. Cops and Convicts Live. One watching now. So who's, oh, that's me. That's funny. Let me get out of this. Let me get out of this. I'm going to watch myself. All right. Okay. So that's how I can monitor my YouTube. I'm not seeing how I can monitor my LinkedIn, because I know I'm live on LinkedIn. I'm supposed to be live on LinkedIn. I am. Let's see here. I am. Okay. So that's the chat in LinkedIn, the chat on YouTube, the chat on Facebook. Hey, Tevin, I see you. What's good, brother? Hey, Tevin, I got the email from those folks that you wanted to contact me, and I gave you an evaluation that you earned. Okay. I'm glad you don't have much to do on a Friday night. Hey, Tevin, do you have any questions about any of the work that we've done over the last 8 years? For those who are watching, Tevin Hudson and other students at the time at USD helped create the questionnaire that we administer to all of the members of law enforcement and all of the civilian participants that come through Game Changers. So Tevin, salute. That was a great period of time that I spent with you. I can't remember the other people's names. I'm friends with one of them on LinkedIn, a girl. Can't remember her name off the top of my head, but you've done a good job of staying in my consciousness by staying in touch with me. How's the family, bro? How's life for you? All right. I hope everything's going well with you, man. So if you're still tapped in, I'll go over the other 4 items on his wish list. The first thing that the chief wants is he wants to change the role of law enforcement. He says we need to re-identify the core function of law enforcement in the United States. We can't continue to respond to every need or concern: homelessness, mental illness, opioid overdoses, etc. Supplement staffing within public safety organizations, both police and the fire department. They need to take a shared responsibility approach by developing specialists and hiring specialists so police officers can be removed from the equation. He says too many bad outcomes result from calls for service they should never be handling in the first place. And at the top of that list is mental health calls. So that was his first point of reform. The second point of reform is to create a survey for all law enforcement agencies and employees to measure the cultural values and priorities of the organization. This type of information will tell you the health of an organization and become a form of an early warning system. The survey would be constructed by the Department of Justice to dig deep into every law enforcement agency. That's number 2. Number 3, Every city with a municipal law enforcement agency should have a law enforcement liaison who works directly for the mayor and city council members to provide guidance, mentoring, and training to help them understand the role and function of their police agency. This will help with policy changes, budgeting, crisis management, and several other issues that arise. The liaison position will be a certified position with training and certification administered at the federal level. That's the third thing. The fourth thing, mandatory post-employment psychological evaluations of police officers who work in the field. This should be done every 2 years, according to this chief, with each officer having to meet established standards set at the federal level. Officers who do not meet these standards would not be able to work in the field. They would remain with the department and receive the professional help that they need. The stress of the job impact people differently, and the wellness of the officer is paramount to performing well. This is overlooked, meaning this doesn't get done currently because of the stigma attached to this evaluation and a structure not being in place so that officers will know whether they can keep their jobs after their evaluation, whether they need treatment and can return to their jobs, or whether they're good and they can just keep moving. That's not in place yet. The mandate, this type of mandate removes the stigma, and the follow-up care and treatment is essential. He also thinks that there should be fitness standards. Fitness standards should also be implemented like the military. Just as if you are not mentally fit for the job, physical fitness standards for field personnel can reduce injuries to the officer and the public that they serve. So, Tevin, if you're still with me, those were the 4 action items on this former police chief's wish list that you missed. So I wanted to go through all of them. Let me know if you have any questions. Do any of those action items resonate with you at all? Do you wonder about like where he was coming from? The last one that you heard, officer involved shootings only being investigated by third parties with the state DOJ. That's a heavy one. It's heavy because it lets me know that he's seen a lot inside of the profession and that those investigations would not be looked upon kindly by the general public if we knew what those investigations consisted of. So, you still with me? Oh, you're in and out with the kids on a Friday night. I hear you. Anybody else? Anybody have any questions? Maybe it's me. Let me see. Let me see what TikTok is doing. Let me see if my TikTok is live. Am I live on TikTok? Yes, I am live on TikTok. Yep. I'm live on TikTok and I am let me see. A couple of people popped in. What's good, everybody? Top viewers, Jared. You know, the way TikTok works, if you want viewers, you gotta tap in directly to TikTok. TikTok does not do a good job of pushing your content to the top through a software like StreamYard, which is what I'm using. So for anybody who does TikTok, who uses TikTok, and you're using this software for the first time, I'm just letting you know that probably not going to get a lot of viewers through your software. You'll get a lot more viewers by broadcasting directly through TikTok. So I'm going to do a little flyby on all the platforms that we're streaming live on and see if anybody is in the chat. I don't see anybody in the chat. Cool, Tevin. I appreciate you tapping in. This is the first time I've interacted with anybody on Facebook. I didn't know how to tap in, but now I'm tapped into all 4 platforms that we're on: TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Bro, how old are your kids now? How old are your kids, Tevin? I think when I met, you had, did you have 2 when we met? I don't remember. I'll let you go, bro. I will let you go. I'll play this outro music. I may do a live stream tomorrow. The topic is either going to be the 12 recommendations that I made to the Trump administration during COVID, and I was invited to testify due to the work that we do through Game Changer, or I want to address this good cop, bad cop mythology. A lot of people don't believe that there are any good cops because they don't tell on the bad cops, and yet those are the same people who are like, you can't be snitching. So I mean, you can't have it both ways. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that soon. My guy Tevin, thank you for tapping in. I'm going to bounce and maybe do a live stream strictly on TikTok tonight, but I want to thank everybody for tapping into this impromptu episode of the Cops and Convicts podcast with Sean Shepard. Have a great, safe Friday evening. I'm out.